So I think I should say good morning for everyone, whoever is listening or watching this video. And I also would like to thank you for Tibetan Monastery service or Gompa service that you have requested me or asked me to speak a few words about the life of the Buddha and his teaching, the first training of the will on Four Noble Truths. So when you're talking about the life of the Buddha, so people like me, or a person like me, I don't have any kind of, what do you say, how should I say? I can't really grasp how can I really speak about the Buddha's life. Because, Buddha is Buddha, right? So Buddha's life is beyond any common people senses or knowledge. So Buddha's knowledge is immense and there's no vast, there's no limit. It's like the sky. So, however, I should just start somewhere. Who is Buddha? When Buddha was appearing on this earth, and why and how. And especially this month in the Tibetan calendar or the lunar calendar or the Himalayan calendar. So all over the world, or particularly in the Buddhist countries, this month is considered to be like a very auspicious month, which means Lord Buddha have played like three, four more very important deeds, which means in Tibetan we call it Zeba, right? So when you're talking about the Buddha's life, I think what we should speak about is Buddha's teaching and the path that he has shown to us. And of course, Buddha's image, which is represented as a Buddha, but the main thing is the Buddha's teaching that we have to remember about the Buddha. When you're talking about remembering or practicing the Buddha's teaching or listening or meditating, everything that Buddha have taught, it's meant for the sentient beings to try to become a better person. And then when you're talking about Buddha, there are so many different ways of that you could speak about the Buddha. Buddha's lifetime when he was born as a prince or royal child, and then how he spent in the palace, and then why he renounced the palace where you have everything, but he sees that's not really the right thing to get some kind of essence for life, particularly for human life. And then how he searched the teaching that lead peace, happiness, more compassionate, better person. So, and then, the sacrifice or the perseverance or the effort that one have to put in order to be able to become a good person and become a good teachers. So I will just speak a few things about this month, which is we Buddhists all over the world, particularly in the Asian continent, everywhere in international level and local government level or individual organization, they all celebrating the Buddha's deeds, which is the Sakadawa, which means Buddha have played commonly we'd say three main deeds, which means a Buddha's birth and in a fully enlightenment, and then Mahaparinirvana. But then there are also another sources say that he also played the training of the Kalachakra teaching. I'm not really familiar with that, but the three main deeds that everywhere in the country, everywhere in the world, like Sri Lanka, Thailand, Vietnam, India, of course, and Tibet, and Himalaya, and even China, I think, they are celebrating the Buddha's Enlightenment Month. And when you're talking about celebration, it's just not really entertaining people. And I would say it's celebrating the Buddha's Enlightenment Month, means remembering the Buddha's legacy, and remembering the Buddha's teaching, and study about the Buddha's teaching, and what does the teaching means for you, for as an individual, and how can you really apply the Buddhist teaching into your life. And so in order to be able to apply the teaching to make your mind better, tame your mind, and minimize the negativities that coming into your mind, and then improve the positivities of our mind. Buddha have shown us like a really right path, and like according to the people mental capacity. So Buddha have turned so many teachings, countless teaching, but then they have like this put into like a category. So it says like 84,000 of Buddha's teaching that people say, or the 3 training of the will. So you could put in all this, all the Buddhist teaching in the 3 training of the will, or the 84,000 Buddhist teachings. And then we have, historically people say that Buddha have given the teachings in like 3-4 main languages, I think at that time, and Sanskrit language, and then Pali language, and then in ancient India we have like 4 major languages that people are saying. But when Buddhists speak, usually those people who have ready to receive the teaching, even though they don't understand English or Tibetan or Sanskrit or Hindi, but if Buddha speak in Sanskrit, everybody will just understand according to their own language, because Buddha sees what the disciple or the people or the sentient being needs, and he just teach according to their mental capacity. So what I'm saying here is celebrating the Buddha's enlightenment means to remember and listen and meditate. Listening the teaching, give thought on the teaching, and meditate the teaching, and then apply. The most important thing is apply into our daily life. Means put into action. Not only just speak about intellectually. Of course, in order to be able to meditate and practice and give thought on the meaning of the Buddha's teaching, first you need to listen from teacher. And listen, reading, and writing, of course. And then when you understand what does it mean, then just put into your thought and think about what does it really mean to you. For example, and then the first training of the will that Buddha have given is, we say, like a four noble truth, which is foundation, or the foundation of the Buddha, all teachings of the Buddha, all different levels of the teaching of the Buddha, and which is quite common in Buddhism, and it's common for all Buddhists. And when I'm saying all Buddhists, mean Buddha's teaching have like if you put into the tenets, there are 4 tenets, and if you put into the mental capacity of the scope of the disciple, there are 3 paths, like a hero vehicle, we call it vehicle, right? Hero vehicle, solitary vehicle, and then Mahayana vehicles. So this teaching Buddha have given for according to the people mental disposition, or the mental mental capacity to take that teaching. So these we could put into different category. So when I should speak a little bit about the Buddha's deed as well. And everybody know, I'm sure, Buddha appeared on this earth 2,560 years almost, somewhere there. There are little different explanation or different historical background about the appearance of the Buddha on this earth, but commonly it says 2,500 and almost 60 now, right? 2,500 years. And Buddha appeared into India, and so when you put into his major deed, there are 12 main major deeds. So what I'm talking about the major deeds in Buddha's life. When you're talking about Buddha's life, we can't really. Well, it's quite similar. We put into our own life as well. We take a birth, we enter into for human being. We enter into the human mother's womb and then take birth and then spend your time in the life and then, common people. And Buddha actually showed this very much same as the common people do, but he tried something differently to show the world how to become good person. I think that would be the most important thing. And I have no kind of desire to speak about the Buddha's miracle play and this kind of thing, especially there's common people to understand and scientifically to understand. It's maybe better to speak very much with the common people too. And the Buddha have shown this in the path, the common people, how the common people speak, how the common people walk, how the common people act with their discipline of the verbally, physically, and mentally. So when you discipline your 3 doors that we say, and Buddha have given the parents teach their children how to become good people, how to really grow up their children to be a good person. So Buddha have given very much precise and clear instruction for us how to become a good person. But then he, of course, there are different levels of teaching that he have gone to. And okay, the 12 deeds, I think I should mention that what are the 12 deeds. And in Tibetan language, it's Gandennepoa is the first deeds, which means it descended from the heaven, or the Tushita, that's a better word. And then entering into the mother's wombs is like a second deed. And then taking birth is the third deed. And then becoming skills and learn it into arts and science. So when you're talking about science, which is really science, at that time science, and not really like a modern time science, probably modern time science as well. But when these days, when you're talking about becoming like a skills in learn it in arts and science, probably these days common people may think about when you're talking about becoming skills and learn it in science and arts, probably someone who could build a computer or machines or I don't know, maybe bomb, or I have no idea. But Buddha's become the learner, the very good skilled and learned and skillful in science, arts and science means mental science, how to make up your mind good. And of course, these days, in the 21st century that we are here, so for example, right now we are recording what I'm saying into this camera, which is very useful, and we can use, and His Holiness the Dalai Lama often said that we can use the technology in a good way, which means someone can speak good thing about the human being, and someone can speak about the positive thing that gives some kind of a comfort and message of peace and loving kindness and patience and understanding each other and mature, any subject that somebody have to say something good for that something that benefit for the people or all sentient beings or environment or anything, and you can reach this message through the technology. So technology is part of science, but when you're talking about Buddha becoming a science, and His Holiness the Dalai Lama often said that Buddha is the great scientist, which means really true. Science means like observing, analyzing, right? And how do you observe, and a more kind of first-person experience, of course. And the modern science way of learning is, in general, they do observe the external thing, not really much about the inner kind of observation or experience. Of course they do, but in the major scientific community, they probably not that much. But nowadays, all over the world, there are huge kind of growing number who are learning about what does it mean for science, not only like a physical science. Of course, physical science, when you're talking about, Buddhist teaching have also like physics and neuroscience and everything, Tibetan medicine stuff, very details about the neuroscience as well. And then when it comes to the science of mind, probably they do have some kind of exchange. There are some area where you could have good exchange with the neuroscience, the modern neuroscientists, and then the ancient or the philosopher or the ancient Indian tradition science, which is Buddha have taught, and Buddha become the skill in the science. Science of mind means like, okay, I could just give one example. We put a lot of analyzing, and Buddhist teaching, when you listen to teaching, for example, to understanding the nature of your mind. What is the nature of your mind? What is the definition of mind? Whether it's really same as the brain or there's something different than the brain, mind. So let's say like mind, which is different than the brain or the heart. And Buddha's teaching have given like, of course, mind is not physical, but when you go to subtlest level, yes, there is a kind of very subtle level of energy, which could be not really physical form like this kind of rock or solid, but yeah, it has something very significant kind of explanation about the subtlest mind. But okay, common people, for example, like us, mind and mental faculties, there are six main, talking about the mind. The mental consciousness, which say like there are 5 sensory consciousness, and then the 6th one, which is the mental consciousness. And then the 5 sensory consciousness, or it's kind of a funny word that people use, eye consciousness, ear consciousness, and nose consciousness, and tongue consciousness, and then bodily or the physical consciousness. And sometimes I did have some small kind of experience with listening modern scientists and having dialogue with His Holiness and Tibetan scholars. When it comes to the consciousness, majority of the scientists seems not really talking much about the mental consciousness, but the Buddhist teaching focus mainly on the mental consciousness. So when you that fourth deeds that Buddha have given, like Buddha have played in his lifetime, becoming skilled and learned in the arts and science. So arts, like a common thing that he plays sport and he defeat people and others, and he become really skilled. And then the science means mainly about the mental thing. And then the 6th one, which is the mental consciousness. And we use the mental consciousness with mindfulness, compassion, loving kindness, and then most importantly, use the wisdom. Okay, so Buddhist teaching often talk about meditation. Meditation doesn't really mean like you have to just cross your leg and close your eye and just remain there like for nonsense. What you have to learn, okay, if you have to practice patience, or if you have to practice loving kindness, you need to give a thought about what is the definition of patient, and what is the counterpart of the patient, and like the opposite mental faculties of the patient, anger, right? So if you get angry, what does it happen to you, and what will happen to the others? And if you practice patience, what will happen to you? What will happen to others? You have to look at the very root cause. What are the main causes to become you angry person? And if you get really angry, you can really feel like we can really experience. So you're not really happy. You become kind of ugly. Mentally, of course, and then also physically, we will become kind of ugly person, right? So people won't like that. Even like animals, they won't like us, if you get angry. And if you get really completely controlled by the anger, and people do anything, right? They can kill others, they can kill yourself, they can kill your health, and they can kill your peace of mind, everything. So when you meditate, the moment that you get some sort of agitation or kind of discomfort or getting angry or getting hatred to others, you feel not really happy. So then when you do the meditation, means the moment that you get some anger, it's straight away that you have to think, oh no, this is not really good for me or not good for others. Because it's this only creates you negativities. And if you get overwhelmed with anger, then we will just act like a violently, physically and verbally as well. When it's motivated with the anger, and then very violent thing can happen that we could see everywhere in this world. And the same as with the hatred. So we have to use these analogies or the analyzing meditation, wherever you are, anywhere in the world. Doesn't really much matter whether you are surrounded with your family or friends or enemies or, just ordinary people we say enemy, but there's no enemy. Everybody is our friends. Or maybe our family, right? If you think really like a broader way, we are all same human beings, and everybody wish to be a good life and a successful life and happy life. And how can you create a happy and successful life? It's training, a lot of training. And of course, you need to focus in a concentration meditation. When you come to the meditation, in a single-pointed meditation or the concentration, and then analytical meditation. So in order to be able to become really constructive analytical meditation, you have to have certain level of concentration. And that I have given this example about meditate on patient. And the opposite of the patient is anger. And then the anger becomes too strong, and then the hatred, and then all the negativities come. So then we have to have the concentration, means like focus the mind on the one subject, not really become obsessed with that object, but think about the nature of anger. And then use the disadvantage, analyze the disadvantage of becoming anger, and then the advantage of practice patience. Analytical meditation is very, very important. And you will see that in all the monasteries and nunneries, everywhere, where you will learn philosophical teachings, and then you do a lot of debate. And I would say probably that's also kind of a part of analytical meditation, which means questioning, answering, and that way you make a really solid kind of understanding of the nature of anything, any subject. So, okay, that's Buddha become the skills in learn it skill and learn it in arts and science, which is mainly mean mental science, but also physical science as well. So this is the fourth deed of the Buddha. And then, Buddha also play enjoying a royal life. Royal means he was born as a prince in India. And at that time, some people say it's a very small kingdom, and some people say it's a big kingdom. I have not really much idea. But anyway, he was born in a royal family. And he enjoyed the royal life. That's the fifth deeds. And then he sees enjoying the royal life like a common people life wasn't answering what he needs. He was from the very young age. I should mention that when he was born, actually a saint actually predicted him. So this child going to be the enlightened being or the leaders of the spiritual for all over the world, or he will become like the great king. And there was one old man. He was the saint who came to when he was born, and one was crying, and on the person who made the prediction, he sees that what he's going to be in the future. And one was crying. One old man was crying, and then the Buddha's parents, especially his father, was really worried. What are you talking? What is wrong with my child? And he says, this person going to be the ruler or the leader of the world or the universe, but I'm really old now. I will die before he become before he grown up. And then the person who predicted him like he will going to be a great king or ruler or the spiritual like a leader for all sentient beings. And then his father wanted him to continue his kingdom, right? He wanted to keep him at the palace and provide every possible comfort. So he don't want to lose his child to become a renunciate or the monk or run away from the kingdom. So, but he encountered with all these things. Even though he was young, he was just really meditating, looking at those people who are acting like violently, and he just contemplate and looking like even small insect or some people who are harming others, and he just do live really lovingly, kindly, compassionately acting. So he was really, really kind of serious or, always contemplating. Means like looking inwardly, not really externally, outwardly, what you could say. But anyway, he enjoyed a royal life. And so in historical Buddha or there are two aspects of the Buddhas. Historical Buddha and then the Buddha said that why I'm saying is like a historical Buddha means like a common people who will find like a history of the Buddhas, which is also really it's quite easy to understand somehow. But then when I'm counting here the 12 great deeds and then deeds there are little slightly different between the Theravada tradition explanation and then Bodhisattva's path or the Mahayana explanation of the Buddha's life, slightly different, but not really much different. When especially this day, we do not really talk about the differences. Better to talk about the common one, especially the Four Noble Truth. And then when it comes to understanding subtle level, yes, you have to make the differentiation in order to be able to understand better for us. So that's why I'm great deeds and then 12 deeds on great deeds, okay. And according to the Mahayana or the Bodhisattva's explanation, all these 12 deeds are like Buddha's, it's deed of the Buddhas, not really like Bodhisattvas or ordinary people like our deeds. But he showed this deed to common people like us, how to follow our life, how to become our life better. So the fifth one, which is enjoying a royal life, and then when he sees in the spending his luxury life at the palace, he wasn't really happy, and he sees it's not really that. That doesn't really provide what he really need, which means he wanted to do something more. Not really just focusing on a family and child and wife or that kind of thing. Of course, that's a kind of part of life, but he wanted to do something more to benefit all sentient beings. So how can you really benefit all sentient beings? You need to know the path, how to follow. First, you need to know, right? Same thing that, if someone wanted to be a good teacher, you need to go to school, you need to go to the college, and you need to go to the university, and you have to complete the thing. And then you will be able to teach, or teach means like guide others toward a better life. So what he did, then, even though he was enjoying it, his father was keeping him at the palace and providing everything, but he wanted to do more than that, improve his mind. And so let me see where was in this one. How he actually, I wanted to say that how he escaped from the samsaric life and then take the renunciate life, okay? The sixth one, which is Rabduchungwa in Tibetan, which means taking the renunciate life, and a renunciation of samsara. Okay, here, samsara, what does samsara mean? In Tibetan word, we call it korwa. So, samsara, which means korwa. Korwa means like taking a river, like burning again and again in this suffering world, by the force of afflictive function and karma, contaminated karma that people use, right? Right? So contaminated karma and then afflicted emotion. Because of the negativities that have from the beginningless that we have within, that exists within ourselves, because of that, we suffer. So Buddha wanted to free from this problem. So how can you really free from this problem? So you need to find a solution, right? So that's how it come to, he renounced it, he just abandoned samsaric life, ordinary life, and then just, left the whole, every possible luxurious things that in the palace, left his family and dad and everything, and run away to search good path, to search the right path, to develop these positivities instead of the, always running to the negative one, which means like nyomong. And Rabdu Chungwa, so which is the 6 deeds. And then after taking out, becoming ordained, the causes, let me see, they are, okay, what caused him to run away from the palace? And, if someone, born in the royal life, every possible things are there. Why he just stay there and enjoy? But he wasn't really enjoying that. So then his father is keeping him away from this, seeing this, like old age, sicknesses, and finally death. These things that cause him to run away, because the center I already predicted that he will run away from the palace if he sees these kind of things. So his father was keeping him providing everything, musician, and all sort of thing to keep at the palace. But he went to one time in the town to see, and he saw an old man was very, very, very skinny. When he was entering into the city, sees the suffering of aging and death. So aging and death and sicknesses, aging, sicknesses, and death. These 3 things you can't really avoid. No matter whatever possible thing that you try to have, it's part of our life, right? Samsaric life. So you can't really avoid this. It will come. So then if you look at the final solution, then yeah, there is. But you can't really, see. So when he went to the side in the cities and he sees this, people are suffering. If someone else is suffering, of course, then we will suffer the same way too, because we are all born in the same way. And born in the same way, and then you age, you become old, you can't really stop with it. And of course, you have to take care of your health, but you will, become older. And then you will become sick also, right? And then finally, death comes. Nobody can stop. So he sees these 3 when he entered into the cities and just went to, I don't know whether you could say a look around or something, what. And he sees this, and when he says old man and sicknesses and death, okay, now, I don't want to be in this cycle thing, and I wanted to free all this suffering. If there is a path that leads to free this suffering or not. And he was curious about this, and that caused him to run away from the palace, and then becoming ordained. Let's meditate, becoming the Buddha, renunciate means like a monk. Okay, and then after becoming a monk, of course he met few other teachers who gave some instruction about meditation and contemplation and asceticism, but he tried few things, but didn't much have improve. And then finally he said we say a 6 years asceticism, right? Lotu Kawachepa, which is the 7th deed, and he committed himself sit under the Bodhi tree, and he committed himself I'm going to meditate under this Bodhi tree until I really see the true nature of our life and our true nature of our mind. So he did a 6 year, which is not much, but of course it's just show us how we should do, right? Lotu Kawa Chepa, which means like practice of austerity or asceticism, which is, this word doesn't come quickly in my mouth, but it's asceticism, which means Lotu Kawa Chepa in Tibetan. And then the 8th one, which is a Changchuk Nyeba, which is searching the enlightened. And then the 9th one, which is taming the demonic forces, which means while he was meditating under the Bodhi tree to achieve to realize the true nature of mind and minimize rid of this negativities of our mind. So there are, of course, some external or eternal or demonic means who's disturbing. So he taming, or he because taming means like tulwa. So they are like 4 main kind of demonic or demon, right? But mainly it's like nyomong bidu. Okay, so he he actually rid of this demonic things. And then the 10th one, which is he achieved the full enlightenment. When you're talking about fully enlightenment, means like he was able to rid of avoiding or rid of all the negativities of the 3 doors, which means body, speech, and mind. So when you rid of all the negativities, and then you will become knowledge for everything. So which we call it like the omniscient mind. He knows how to rid of all the negativities and becoming the omniscient one, or the fully enlightened, or the Buddha, or awakening, any terms that you could use. The 10th one, which is Sangyeba, and they are manifesting full enlightenment. That's another word that people use, okay? And then after achieving full enlightenment, he remained on meditation for like 49 days, that people say he didn't really teach, and he have achieved what he want, rid of all the negativities and achieved the full, the brightness, the most precious, compassionate, the great compassionate wisdom and enlightened mind. When enlightened mind means Changchup, like Changwa and Chupa in Tibetan. This word have really, significant kind of reason in there. Changchup. All the fault things, negativities that we have rid of, we have avoided through the understanding of wisdom emptiness, or understanding of the interdependency, understanding of the vulnerable truth, nature of the vulnerable truth, and the understanding of the true truth. I mean, in Buddhism, we have at the base, true truth, and then when we put into the practice a Four Noble Truth, and then if you understand these truths, and we will become a knowledge about this. So Changchuk Nyeba, okay, and then he was just contemplating and meditating, observing himself, seeing everything what it is, and he didn't teach for 49 days. Okay, and then there are, we say goddesses and God and goddesses and asura or whatever, human being, and people have requested him to turn the teaching and training the will, okay, training the will of the Dharma. So after attaining the fully enlightenment, and he turned the wheel of Dharma, the first turning of the wheel of Dharma, which is on Four Noble Truth. So do we have time, right? Okay. The Four Noble Truth, which was the first turning of the will, which the Lord Buddha have given the 5 companions that he ran away from the palace and then searching some path in the jungle or the forest, and with him he made a study with them, and then that practice was a little bit kind of extremism or nihilism sort of thing, and he wasn't really finding the middle path. And then they did the asceticism practice, and he became really a skeleton, and his body was really weak. And if his body was really, really weak and his health is not good, you can't really think clearly. So then because of that, lady, actually Sujata, and he offered porridge, rice and milk porridge, and he accepted the porridge. And because of that, the 5 companions, they thought, oh, Buddha have broken his rule, and we should run away from him. So they run away from, I don't know, somewhere in Bodh Gaya, in like Lotukawa, it's like really close to the Mahabodhi Stupa. So they run away because of Buddha have, that was early time of them becoming, before, achieving the fully enlightened. So they run away from him because he accepted the porridge, right? And then when this God and goddesses and human being, when they request him to teach, so he agreed to turning the Dharma wheel, which was on Four Noble Truth, and he traveled from Bodh Gaya to Varanasi. Right now we get to Varanasi, right? And then the first teaching that he turned to was the main disciple, with the 3. In Tibetan we say like a Khornga Desampu, which I'm not really sure about the term in English, sorry. But he gave this Four Noble Truth teaching for these 3 form companion from his earlier life. They were in Varanasi, and then when they heard that Buddha was coming from Bodh Gaya to Varanasi, they thought, well, he broken the promise to not really eating, so he have accepted porridge. Maybe we should not really pay him respect, or we should run away or something like that, whatever. But they planned it. But when the Buddha came, and because of his knowledge and because of his power, they all just stood up, and maybe they prepared him to the seat and whatever the arrangement that he will be able to turning of the Dharma wheel. So these 5 were the main disciple, the first turning of the Dharma wheel main disciple. So Buddha have given this Four Noble, like teaching on the Four Noble Truth. And okay, now Four Noble Truth. What are the Four Noble Truth? Okay. Truth of suffering, truth of origin of suffering, and truth of the cessation or liberated from suffering, and then the path that how can you liberate from the suffering, right? These are the 4 Noble Truth. And when Buddha gave this teaching, we say like 3 repetition of the Four Noble Truth. 3 repetition of the Four Noble Truth mean like the first repetition actually introduced what are the Four Noble Truths. And then the second repetition actually said how to practice. And then the third one, it's like what kind of result or the fruit you could achieve by practicing the Four Noble Truths. So, you can think sometimes funny kind of thing can come in our mind. When you say practice suffering, what do you mean by practicing suffering? We don't want to suffer. Nobody wants suffering. What do you mean by practicing suffering? Which means like, first, identify what is suffering. So we need to identify the suffering, because ordinary people like us, we actually think that the nature of suffering is something pleasure, right? It's really true, because without identifying the suffering, the nature of suffering, there's no way that you could wish to avoid or rid of suffering, because we are ignored. We don't have the knowledge about how to understand the true nature of suffering. So identifying the suffering, and then the Tibetan word is very it gives some heaviness sort of teaching. Of course, English, but my English is really broken. I don't have enough terms that I could use. But in Tibetan, when you say "Dini dungal pabe demba woman," this is the suffering. When this, he used actually this, not really that. Dini dungal pabe demba means like the very physical body, the aggregate that have taken because of the contaminated karma and the affliction. So this is the suffering. It's the base of the suffering. Okay, and then when you say identifying or introducing what is the causes of the suffering, mean like this is suffering, and this is the causes of the suffering, and this is actually the cessation of the suffering, and this is the path that leads to the suffering. It's not really looking somewhere outside. Someone else will maybe just give you or something, because in Buddha have you saying like, I will show you the path and explanation. If you do not really practice, or if you do not really give on thought, you can't do it much, right? Same as like, okay, for example, me, I'm a sick person, okay? And then Buddha is like the doctor, and then his teaching is the medicine, right? So when you fall sick, you go to the doctor, and then the doctor will check your pulse or urine or whatever, and he or she will diagnose what is the causes, what is the sicknesses, right? Tuberculosis or whatever. And then the prescription, which is the same as the teaching. Okay, this is this kind of sicknesses, and this medicine will help him or her. So then you get the medicine, and when you get the medicine, if you do not really eat the medicine, even though the doctor actually have diagnosis exactly what is the problem or what is your sicknesses, and then he have make the prescription, and then you have bought the medicine, but if you do not really take the medicine, the problem won't go away. So it's the same thing that listen to the teaching, but just listening doesn't help. So you have to put into action. Same as you have to eat the medicine. In order to be able to cure from this sicknesses, you need to eat the medicine, right? So if you eat the medicine, then we will get free from this common kind of illnesses. Same thing that so this is suffering, and then this is cause of the suffering. In order to be able to rid of the suffering, you can't really just rid of the suffering, minimize taking drug or taking alcohol or watching movie or this kind of thing. Many people really try really temporal sort of solution. I mean, probably they think it's not really the temporal solution, but if you look at really carefully, it's a really, really temporal solution, right? So if it's a temporary thing, it just go for a few moments, but then you'll come back again. So in order to be able to, for example, if you have like a very pain, same as the painkiller. If you eat the painkiller, the pain will go just for some time, maybe 1 or 2 hours, or maybe 6 hours, and after that it will come back. So what you need to do is, if you want to free from the suffering, you have to have rid of the causes of the suffering. For example, if there is a poison plant is growing, if you just cut the branch or the leaves, and it will grow again. So what we need to do to not really grow again this poison plant, you need to just take from the root and then throw away. So same thing, that if you want to free from the suffering, we have to rid of the causes of the suffering, which is the origin of suffering, or the noble truth on, origin of the suffering, which is the causes, right? What are there? There are like 6 poisons, mental one. There are 3 or 6 or more than that. Right? When I say Buddha have given like 84,000 different types of teaching, because of we have a numbering, but maybe there's more than that. There are mean like 84 faultnesses of our mind. And to antidote or the medicine to rid of these 84 negativities, he have given 84 teachings. How do you do that? 1 or 2 examples I have given, like for practice patient is anger and hatred, the opposite of the hatred is a loving kindness. All this, like each negative mental attitude have like a opposite, which could cure with that. For example, it's a water, hot water is boiling. If you put like a cold water, it will cool down, right? Similar thing that. So what I'm talking, okay, here, the Four Noble Truth. 3 repetition, right? The first one identifying, and then the second repetition is how to practice. Dunga sheparcha, kunjungpa warcha, gobangunducha, lamgomparcha. Means like identifying the Four Noble Truth, and then this is the suffering, and then the second one is say like dunga sheparcha means like suffering is need to be known and to understand, right? Dunga sheparcha. And then how, dunga means like after understanding the true nature of the suffering, and then nobody wants suffering, right? So how can you, if you don't want, then you need to chase away, or you need to like avoid it or free from it. And how can you be free from it? By rid of the causes, which are the affliction. Kunjung Pawarcha, which is the Kunjungwa, means like origin of all negativities. Okay? Kunjung means kun, in Tibetan kun means all, right? Kunjung Pawarcha. Okay, how can you really rid of the origin of suffering? And what is the cessation or the free, what is the free, what do you call that? The result of rid of the suffering, which is liberation, free from suffering. Or, Kunjung Pangwarcha means the quality that you have when you rid of the origin of suffering, which is Gokpa Ngunducha. Gokpa means stop or avoid it or completely rid of the origin of suffering, which is cessation or liberation, or in Tibetan language we say it's a Dharma, like you are free from this suffering and causes of the suffering, origin of suffering. And Gokpa Ngunducha, like Gokpa means cessation. Cessation is cessation or the liberation is something that you can achieve. How can you really achieve? Not really getting kind of degree, but so some kind of mental qualities achieved that all the negativity, when you rid of all the negativities, and you will gain the knowledge, right? The good qualities, which that's the Dharma and Gokpa. And then in order to be able to achieve liberation or the cessation, and you have to follow the path, practicing the path. How can you really do that? And then the Four Noble Truths are the very foundation for all Buddhists. It's not only the foundation as well as like the pillars and everything, I think, Even though when you're talking like a hero vehicle, or a solitary vehicle, or a Mahayana vehicle, or a Tantarayana vehicle, whatever you say, everything actually based on the Four Noble Truths. So the first teaching, which was Four Noble Truths, and then the Four Noble Truths have like a 16 different aspects on it. So how can I really understand? Each have like a four different aspects, and altogether they have 16. So you need to understand this really thoroughly, and then that really give you, how can you say, satisfaction or fulfillments or contentments or every wishes, whatever you are wishing, you will get that. And that's what we can think about it. And, okay. The 12 deeds, very, very briefly. If you go to the details, and I don't have enough kind of knowledge, but I'm just putting into whatever I've learned from my teachers in the past, like 30 years. And I'm not really a person who practice, but I see, yes, there's a reason for that. And if you want to free from suffering, you need to find the path. How can you really free from suffering? And you need to recognize what is suffering itself. rather than like going to the wrong direction. Okay, so these are the Four Noble Truths. So I think I'll just mention, if so people who are viewing things, these days the technology really give us great advantage to learn about, people whoever have interest, right? When you give this kind of Buddhist kind of explanation or everything, I think I should better say like for common people like these days, whether you're a Buddhist or whether you're believer or non-believer, whatever, it's main thing that we have to think about is how to discipline yourself, right? How to discipline yourself and how to maintain yourself as like good, morally or well-disciplined. So these are very much common with everybody, not really just a Buddhist or Christian or Hinduism or anything. So His Holiness really emphasized, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, I'm saying, especially this modern world right now, and where you have technology, progress, and science, and everything is there. So many distractions are there, and also there are construction are there, constructive things are also there. And someone wanted to learn and becoming good person and making good, whether it's a good Buddhist or a good Christian or a good Hinduism, it's mainly you need to be able to understand the essence of each teachings, okay? So, and you can find a lot of information from the internet. That's why, like internet or the technology, how can you really use the technology in a positive way, right? So, there are some times that people get kind of discouraged because of violence and negativities that's happening around the world, but why you're just looking outwardly, maybe you just look inwardly and individual. If one individual can make some differences, and then the other individual will get differences, it means like a good way. So you have to try our best to reach like a message of compassion, peace, loving, kindness, happiness that Buddha have given to reach whoever want to learn. It doesn't really mean like if you want to understand like the Four Noble Truths, you don't have to become a Buddhist, sorry. Okay, when you say Buddhist, doesn't really mean someone who have shaved your hair and wearing this kind of yellow or maroon or this kind of robe. You can wear any kind of clothes, no problem. Mainly, what does it really mean to you? Okay, and you can just learn it. And Buddhist teaching, the whole Buddhist teaching can put into like 3 different parts, like a Buddhist philosophy, Buddhist science, and then Buddhist practice, right? Practice, I mean, you don't have to become a Buddhist in order to be able to practice good practice on loving kindness and compassion and understanding. You don't have to. You don't have to take a refuge in 3 jewel. Okay, yeah, of course, you do have 3 jewel. But you don't need to think about what is the 3 jewel, what is the precious jewel. We don't have to make like kind of prostration. Of course, you do, in order to be able to, we believe like creating merit, right? Tsosakpa. And if you pay respect for that like holy object, we believe that you will create positive. But another way of thinking, another way of respecting those who are doing good job, good thing, those who are working for the welfare of other beings, okay? If you respect them, no matter whether you're lay or monastic or whatever career, whatever life that you have taken, if we recognize the positive action or the positive sort of approach that people are trying to do, if you appreciate them and respect them, and then try to exchange or try to learn from them, different tradition is very important, right? So you can even in like a Buddha's time in like Indian continent, and he didn't really convert everybody into Buddhism. Okay, he of course showed the Buddhist science, which is common for all of us. Means like how to become a good person and how to become a better person, well-disciplined person, and it's really much common with everybody. When I'm saying everybody, means whether you are a believer or non-believer. So especially in Buddhism, we really, if someone is really strictly Buddhism, we never ever encourage people to convert into like Buddhism. That's not really stable. And traditionally, we do have, in India, we have so many different traditions, and so they all coexist happily, right? But when it comes to individually, whether you want to really wanted to like commit to yourself, whether you want to believer or non-believer, it's up to you. But in common, we all same as a human being. And we have same desire, right? And then you can use the different method. How can you really become a happier person? And you can get a lot. We can learn so many things from different traditions. And within Buddhism, we have like different traditions out there. Each different steps and like the tenets, each actually enrich each other rather than contradict each other. And when you come to the very much intellectual level, and like a scholar people, they do debate. Of course, in ancient India, like in Nalanda, if you read some story about the Nalanda masters, how they debate, they were very open-minded. And Hinduism or Charvaka or like when you study the Pramanavartika, Semanamdil, right? We discuss a lot with the non-Buddhists and the Buddhists together. That means enriching each other. Means like the richnesses of other tradition and the like a Buddhist tradition and the richness of the non-Buddhist tradition, they all discuss together. These days, His Holiness the Dalai Lama have created like more than 30 years ago now with like a discussion with the scientists, right? So you could discuss a lot about with the scientists, modern scientists, or maybe traditional or scientists, or like a mental scientist or whatever. How can you bring about peace and happiness in the world, and getting like the principle from different ancient tradition, especially the ancient Indian tradition. Which is one of the ancient Indian tradition, which is Buddhism, right? So how Buddhist teaching came to Tibet and the Himalaya and everywhere in the Asian continent, and of course these days in the West as well. So I'm talking kind of my broken English here. I believe that whoever listening or watch, whatever, probably English speaker or I'm not sure, doesn't really much matter. I'm just one human being. I think I'm quite a human being. Okay, I'm a human being, and then been in Dharamsala for like more than 30 years, and got this teachings on what I'm talking about, the Four Noble Truths, which are the foundation or the building block of Buddhist teaching, and information that give us to understand the true nature of our mind and our world. And so these are very profound teaching, very, very profound. Profound means like you can dig the meaning very deeply. When it comes to the 16 different aspects of the Four Noble Truth, and then the opposite of the 16 aspect of the Four Noble Truth, which has, it comes to the in like a philosophical discussion, okay? And then if we really wanted to do more kind of a discussion and debate, and then you have the views or the interpretation or the different views. There's a differences between the Buddhists and non-Buddhists, okay? But whether you are Buddhist or not, nobody wants suffering. And then nobody wants suffering, means suffering have different levels again. There are so many different levels of suffering, but there are mainly three, okay? Three main, we could put into like a three category, I'm saying. And of course, there are countless of suffering. You do have headache or pain when you get sick. you have a stomach ulcer, you have a skin cancer, you have, I don't know, brain tumor, or you have, I don't know, all these different kind of cancers that you have, right? You can't really put into like 3 categories. I guess, when you go to the doctor and someone falls sick, and doctor will prescribe like a diagnosis so many different types of illnesses, especially these days because of the probably ancient time you may, but looks like because of some of the negative, I would say, I'm sorry if I'm wrong, but the negative impact of environment, negative impact of some part of science, okay? Probably, yes, because when you create too many things, sometimes we do not really pay much attention on the environment, right? When you're talking environment, it's become big thing, or also small thing, that environment, one individual environment too, right? So a lot of destruction, creating so many technology, so many non-kind of useful sort of technology, especially, it's become kind of out of control, using the natural resources and taking all the good resources from the earth, or from our Mother Earth, and using them too much because of greed. See here, Buddhist teaching give a lot of instruction or explanation about contentment, choksheba in Tibetan, right? Contentment means like be happy with what you have, and be contented with it. Not really getting to greedy. Nowadays, everybody are aware that, our Mother Earth is actually dying, it's burning. And I have no proof, I'm not really good scientist, I'm not really good environmentalist expert, but by looking and listening and watching some of this on Discovery Channel or the BBC report or this kind of thing, we are damaging our environment. Because of that, so many different illnesses are coming, right? And there are some diseases that you can't really treat either. And then, so we may have to try to go back to the nature, try our best to do, use the good part of the technology to reach them good message, but then negativity, we have to aware that. When you're talking about this, I was talking about the suffering. The first phone number 2, it's like a true suffering. So it's quite easy to say nobody wants suffering, but then the second question, what is suffering? I think like me, including myself, we think like the nature of suffering, it's a pleasant, or maybe not suffering, because we have ignorant about it. We have too much ignorance about it. So we don't really understand what is suffering itself. That's a subtle level, but then the very grosso level of suffering, in Buddhism we have like a Buddhist teaching have given like three different types of suffering that put into the just 3 category, like a suffering of suffering, and change of suffering, and then the third one is a very important one. And then when Buddha says that dini dukkha phamma, this is the suffering, is like a true, this is the true like a true suffering, right? Which means the contaminated or people use like the 5 skandhas or the 5 aggregate, which are the basis of suffering. And then suffering of suffering, which is quite simple to understand. For example, take like a severe headache. It's suffering, right? It's uncomfortable. Suffering means something that unpleasant. And then changeable suffering, whatever kind of we or me feel pleasant or pleasure, which is in true nature, it's a suffering because it changes. That's the second one, and then the third one, we need to work on that a lot. Otherwise, we won't understand. So, and then I heard like maybe I'm wrong, but there are people, especially in like a developed country, they don't like to speak about suffering. I'm not sure why. Maybe they're scared. And suffering, old age, and getting sick, and then dying, death. And they don't like to speak about it. And I don't know why. Probably because too much attached to their own body. I'm not sure. But whether we like or not, it will come if you think carefully. Old ages, sicknesses, and death is part of life. It will come. If we talk about old age, sicknesses, and death, probably we get better prepared when the actual death come. You know, no matter whether you are king or queen or scientist or famous or not famous, it doesn't really much matter. The same way that we die, right? So if you think about, well, it's a part of nature, it comes. But if you prepare mentally, I mean, when talking about the prepared death doesn't mean like look at your, these days, of course, I mean, maybe ancient time too. Prepare for death mean like, look a place where your body will be, you know, maybe not really cremated, but maybe put in like the coffin and different type things, right? There are people who prepare with that, but that doesn't mean that. Prepare for death mean like to understand the nature of our life. To understand the nature of life, impermanence is very important to understand. It changes because of it's produced by cause and condition. So it will change, and then maybe try to change in a better way, right? To understand it, to confident that, okay, I will die, but then whether there will be future life or not doesn't really much matter. But if you prepare well, mentally really understand the nature of our mind and the nature of samsara, or the nature of the cycle existence that we call this term, people, you know, in this maybe like a Buddhist term probably. The cycle of existence means like a cycle and taking rebirth again and again on this samsaric life. And yeah, it will, you know, we will, when you're talking about the mental consciousness, as long as you discover that the mental consciousnesses exist, then definitely there will be a future life. We have to think about the mental consciousness is very important to understand. So, you know, the fourth deed that the Buddha become like becoming skills and learn it in the arts and science, the mental science. So especially the sixth consciousness. If you become familiar with it, meditate on it, and give thought on it, the different types, like 52 different types of mental, like a mental faculties that we call Semjung in Tibetan. Sem means consciousness, and Semjung means mental faculties. And if you study the mind of Buddhist mind and mental factors, very important is psychology. It's Buddhist psychology. And, you know, really like Buddhist psychology, the term that people use in Buddhist psychology, but it's a psychology, okay? You know, Buddhist doesn't really mean that those who just do some kind of offering a water ball or making kind of prostration to the Buddha's statue or something like that, but maybe the ultimate truth, the two truths are there, right? So, what I'm talking, I got lost. Oh yeah, becoming skilled and learn it in the arts and science means like becoming good psychologists. The Buddha's teaching mainly deal about, I think, all to talk about the mind. And physical world, of course, in the Buddhist Abhidharma we have, like in Buddhist teaching, can be put into like a 3 vehicles or like a 3 pitakas, which means like a denusum in Tibetan. And then when you come to the physical world, it's the Abhidharma, where it not only the Buddhist epistemology that people often call, but it's talking about the world system, how it did come to being, and how it, and these kind of things that they're talking. But these are important also, of course, but mainly the Buddhist the psychology things, psychology part. each and every teachings are Buddhist psychologists. And to psychologically become a good person, which means you have to identify all the mental faculties. So that's what it means here. And then I think I should mention the 16 aspect of the fundamental truth, where you have a, where are you? Okay. Oh. 16 aspects of the Four Noble Truth means like each truth of suffering, truth of origin of suffering, and then cessation of the suffering, and then the path to lead the cessation of suffering. And each have four characteristics on it. So that's the 16 aspect of the Four Noble Truth. So the four aspects of the suffering are, in the Tibetan word terms are quite good actually. Mita dungi tong dangme. So impermanent, suffering, and then empty from its nature, and then let me see here. The first one is like impermanence. Okay. But it doesn't mean that like the origin of suffering is also not really impermanent. But there's a significant reason for the importance of the suffering. Impermanent. Impermanent means like momentary changing, right? Grosser level is changing and subtle level is changing. You can't really, nobody can stop by changing because it's produced by cause and condition. Like impermanent, and then the third one, it's a miserable phenomena, and then the second one is a miserable phenomena, and then the third one is a void phenomena, and then the fourth one is a phenomena lacking and impossible. So four aspects of the true suffering of like a true suffering, and then we have the four aspects of a true origin of suffering, right? The origin of suffering, which is Kunjung Demba, it's the origin of suffering. These are another four aspects. When you count, it's a causes, and origin, and strong producers, and then the conditions. These are the four aspects of the origin of true suffering. And then the four aspects of the cessation or the liberation, the true stopping, true cessation, like that's what you call it, true cessation, okay? The first one is like a true stopping, like a Gopa Shiwa Kyanum in Tibetan, Gopa Shiwa Kyanum Ngijin, okay? The English word that people use, okay, to me it gets a little kind of shallow, but I'm not sure. It says like a true stopping are the pacification in the sense that because the mental continue on which they occur are totally rid forever of a person of true suffering and true origin, okay, which means like a pacification. First one is stopping, second one is a pacification, and then the third one, superior states, and then the fourth one, and definite emergence. Gopa, Shiva, Kyanum, Ngijin. These are the four aspects of the true cessation. And then we have the four aspects on the path to lead to cessation. These are paths, lam, lam rikpa drupang engine. Lam means path, and then the appropriate means true path. Let me see, path, lam rikpa drupang engine. These are quite subtle. I don't have equivalent sort of term. Probably yes here. Path minds, and then another one is the true path, and then means for actualization. Lam Rigpa Dupa Nginjin. Actualization or the true path means to mean Lam Rigpa. If literally it means something different, but okay. Lam means path, Rigpa means like knowing, Drupa means like a practice, and then Ngenjin it's like a definite emergent. So these four are the four aspects of the path. So total we have 16 aspects of the path. 16 aspects of the Four Noble Truths. And then these are just accounting for that. And then when we study like especially like at the second chapter of Pramanavartika by Dharma, it gives so many details about how can you really prove that suffering is impermanence. There are like a different logic that you could use, okay? And then like Denshi Lujung Lugdo, I don't know what this term for now in English, I will learn in the future and how can you really use this. These are really important and it gives a lot of understanding, a lot of insight to make more analyzing, right? So maybe I think I should stop here, and I hope I have counted the Four Noble Truths correctly, and then the 16 different aspects and 16 characteristics or the 16 aspects of the Four Noble Truths. And then of course like the life of the Buddha is a very, very, very brief sort of shallow sort of understanding that I have right now. But when you're talking about the Buddha's life, common people like me, I have no capacity to grasp the Buddha's knowledge. Or like when you're talking about the Buddha's knowledge, I mean body, speech, and mind, okay? Buddha's physical body, they are like in the 8th chapter of the ornament of the ornament of the path that Maitreya Buddha have written about the Buddha's bodies, speech, and mind. The whole chapter, the 8th one, which have mentioned about the Tenzang, like a 32 the qualities and good, the Buddha's like Buddha's body's qualities like a 32 signs and 84 qualities of the Buddha's teaching. Buddha's form. So life of the Buddha is something different, and Buddha have shown like a common kind of people that can follow, and then there are certain places that where he have shown like something beyond like ordinary people perception and ordinary people senses or perception. So when you talk, if you want to learn Buddha's life, mainly learn Buddha's teachings. And teaching means like the guidance or the instruction. How can one become a good person? So that would be the really essence of the meaning of the Buddha's life. And then like a Four Noble Truth is the foundation and the building block, and we could learn a lot. To study Buddha's life and to study the Four Noble Truth, you definitely don't have to like commit yourself as a Buddhist. That's what we really wanted to share with you. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you so much. And I would just dedicate anything that positive that came up from here, dedicate to the well-being of all sentient beings, including myself, because I'm also the person who is suffering all the time, right? Okay, so thank you so much. All right.